The other bill that they discussed yesterday in the special session was a bipartisan jobs bill, a $626 million package of incentives and changes to regulations, and supporters hope a change to Connecticut's business climate. John Charlton spoke with some business owners and tried to find out what they thought of the package and whether it would help jobs.
A significant number of jobs are set to disappear once again in Connecticut. 400 of them will be cut at Aetna through early retirement. The announcement comes just a day after legislators passed a plan to create more work in the state.
There were not things in that bill built for Aetna. You know, most of these things were built for small to mid-size companies, so it's just more coincidence and timing than anything else.
The Connecticut Business and Industry Association is cautiously optimistic that over time, the new job creation package will help slash the state's current 9% unemployment rate. But the CBIA says don't expect an explosion of jobs because the jobs bill primarily helps small business.
Small business might only hire one or two people in a year, but if you can have, several thousand companies hire one or two people, then that can have an impact.
The incentives to do that include less red tape to run a business, as well as an expanded tax credit of up to $900 a month for hiring veterans, people with disabilities, and folks who've been unemployed for a while. Also, the business entity tax will be cut in half to $250 every 2 years.
The original promise, like many things in Hartford, was to get rid of it after just a few years. Unfortunately, that didn't happen.
Christopher Coutu was the only state rep, Republican or Democrat, to vote against the jobs bill last night.
There's other states across America that don't have things like an income tax, have lower corporate tax rates, have lower estate taxes, lower gas taxes, lower energy costs. All of this is making Connecticut really not competitive.
It was John Charlton reporting. I guess one thing that stuck out in that package to me was we've had experts here on the show. Some will come on and say, you got to concentrate on the small businesses. And then the next week we'll have someone on and say, no, it's got to be the big businesses. And I'm wondering, I guess it has to be a combination of both.
Well, it's funny. I think we both agreed and brought to the table because prior to that there really wasn't a focus on small business. Mm-hmm. And it's just simple mathematics. 80% of the businesses that we have in the state of Connecticut, therefore 80% of the jobs are created by small businesses. If we could it might not be glamorous and sexy and headline and marquee, but if each one of these small businesses adds one person, you're talking about thousands and thousands of jobs, not 200 or 400. I'm talking thousands of jobs. Brendan and I often talked about, we heard about the first 5. How about the first 500? If 500 companies hire 2 people, that's a lot of jobs. Yeah. That's 1,000 jobs. So I think we were right to focus this package on the small business.
What were the highlights, you think?
Well, Larry stole my line because I think that's the idea of the first 50, first 500. When we first talked about this jobs package, I think one of the things we kept hearing from our constituents was we've heard a lot about the first 5. It's great, large companies bringing lots of jobs, but what about small businesses? And that's why we moved from an original investment in this package of about $5 million for small businesses. With the input of the legislature on this package, it moved to $180 million total of packages of incentives and loan guarantees and other consolidation of programs that are all going to small business. It became the focus of this package, but whereas it wasn't before.
Well, if Representative Cafero stole your line, maybe you can steal one back. During the break, Larry reminded us that this isn't new money. This $600 million plus we're going to borrow means we're going to make decisions not to borrow for other things. We're going to work it in within our existing capital budget. That also includes money for schools or roads or projects in lawmakers' districts. Do you think, and I want to ask both of you, are your parties ready to cut back in other areas, even if it means bringing less back home, to have this go forward?
Well, I don't think a lot of folks realize that recently, earlier this session and last year, we actually did do a scrubbing of all of those authorized bond projects that were not going anywhere. So we could leave ourselves additional room for bonding this year and beyond for these kinds of investments. Essentially what we're doing in this jobs bill is not adding new money, but we're taking existing programs within the economic development realm and refocusing them and rededicating them and tasking them to actually focus on the things that the jobs bill calls for.
Next year, when people are running for re-election, will they be comfortable with less bonding they can point to for other purposes?
I think they're going to have to be. It's a new world out there, and what we did, it was what we should be doing, is reprioritizing. Right now, the priority is jobs. So the gazebo in East Haddam and the turf field in East Haven, as important as they are to those communities, they have to take second fiddle to creating jobs for everyone.
You know, one thing that we've heard a lot from business people who've been on the show is about the regulatory process. I know that this has made some changes. What can they expect?
Well, the package includes a Jobs Express package for small businesses that will help small businesses understand what the state is offering and how to go about accomplishing that, as well as helping to stream. There's going to be a full analysis of all of the state programs that we utilize to help find ways to streamline those. And I know the commissioner of DECD just announced earlier today that she's going to be going out to all the communities all over the state, to the chambers of commerce and small businesses, to tell them what we're going to be providing to them.
Just as an example, or a lot of people apply for occupational licenses, electricians, plumbers, etc. And we heard horror stories and anecdotes of them waiting month after month after month. One of the things in this bill said, once a person applies for one of these licenses, the board has to act on it within 30 days. End of story, period. And those are the kind of things that we heard from small businesses. Why do we have to wait so long? Why is the permitting process so long? If we wanted to clean up a brownfield because we want to develop it, why does it take so long to get through the morass and red tape? And there's no excuse for it. And we hope that this is the first step to clear that up.
While all of this was going on, there was an unspoken agreement at first, then spoken later, that people weren't going to use ugly words like taxes and spending. Was there a lot of pressure from either of your caucuses, from the rank and file, to put those issues on the table?
Well, I think we had agreed on a bipartisan basis to not do that, to focus on the things that we could agree on, so that, including a prohibition within our caucuses of doing amendments to the bill, because what we wanted to focus on was what we all agreed on and what we could get done this session. And I think the expectations actually were lowered initially, because how many things can we actually agree on across the aisle? The reality was we did a lot on a bipartisan basis.
There was a lot of pressure. Keith, we come from different parties and different philosophies, and obviously you saw play out during the regular session. We believe that the excessive taxation, that regulation has a stranglehold and is stifling economic growth and job creation. We fought that in the past, and we darn well are going to fight it in the future. But we said, let's put that aside for a second and come together with a handful of ideas that we could all agree upon to help make the state a better place. That's what we did. Those issues aren't going away.
Why do you think this is happening now? I mean, you both have been in the legislature for a while. I mean, what's the difference this year that is propelling this?
Well, part of it is a new governor. We have a governor that understands the fact that we have to move Connecticut forward. We've had 22 years of stagnation in terms of job growth and economic development. And this governor is, I talked about turning a corner during the debate. We turned a corner when we solved or at least hopefully have resolved our fiscal problems. And then job two, that was job one. Job two is creating jobs. And this governor made it a priority, and I think on a bipartisan basis, we're all with him on that.
And that's where I might respectfully disagree. And I give the governor credit, certainly, for his participation, but no more or less credit than I give to Representative Sharkey, myself and my caucus, Senator McKinney. That a bipartisan agreement, by definition, means everyone had to keep their end of the bargain, and that happened. I think what drove us to this point is the desperation of the times. When you have 9.1% unemployment, I think it's down to 8.9 now, in Connecticut, when your friends and neighbors are out of work. With all due respect, it didn't take a new governor to tell all of us we better put aside our differences, get together, and do something about it.
We have less than a minute. Keith, any last thoughts?
One quick question. I'm just curious if someone can tell me. Part of this package allows the state to use the private sector more for capital projects. Some of the unions may not like that. Representative Sharkey, was that a big sticking point?
It was initially, and we wound up narrowing down that program so that it was going to be defined by five projects of limited scope, so that we can measure it to see if it actually works. Other states have had mixed results with that proposal. So it was a compromise, and I think we'll see how it goes.
Just real quickly, any thoughts?
It was a compromise. Obviously, we thought of it in another way, but we wanted to make a deal, and we thought that this was a fair compromise.
Right. Well, we thank you. We thank the leaders for coming. Keith, thanks for being here. Interesting discussion. And, of course, everybody hopes it works.
Absolutely.
We'll stick around. The Secretary of the State is here with some interesting results of a survey on Connecticut's participation in civics.